The alarm started with a single, piercing beep, then another, then a chorus of urgent warnings that echoed through the sterile delivery room. Emily Harper's eyes were wide, glistening with both anticipation and exhaustion as she gripped the edges of the hospital bed. Everything had seemed normal moments ago. She was 28, healthy, and excited to meet her first child. But then, everything changed. The rhythmic beeping of the monitors, a sound meant to comfort, suddenly became a signal of impending crisis. The nurse at her side, seasoned and steady for years, felt a chill creep down her spine. There was no time to think, only to act. Emily's breathing became shallow, her skin pallid, almost ghostly under the harsh, fluorescent lights. The metallic tang of blood hung in the air, blending with the antiseptic smell that always clings to hospital rooms. Doctors rushed in, voices sharp, calm yet urgent, giving orders that seemed both routine and desperate at the same time. Electrodes were adjusted, IVs readjusted, medications prepared in haste. The nurse's hands moved instinctively, a blend of muscle memory and adrenaline, but her mind was racing, struggling to reconcile what she saw with everything she had been trained to expect. How could a patient with no prior complications be on the brink of collapse in minutes? Emily's husband, Tom, stood frozen in the corner, his knuckles white around his phone, calling family to the hospital. The contrast was jarring. The intimacy of impending birth suddenly ripped apart by fear, uncertainty, and the relentless pressure of the unknown. The nurse glanced at Emily's chart. Vitals had been normal minutes before. Nothing in the records predicted this. Nothing could have prepared anyone for the sudden drop in blood pressure, the erratic heart rate, the signs of a body slipping into crisis. And then, as if time itself slowed, the room became a series of synchronized motions. The doctor's hands pressing on Emily's chest, the anesthesiologist preparing for an emergency procedure, the monitor's alarms blending into a high-pitched symphony of urgency. The nurse whispered Emily's name, anchoring her voice into the room, a human tether amidst the mechanical chaos. "Stay with me, Emily. You can do this. I'm right here." Her words were simple, yet they carried the weight of years of experience, of countless births, and of moments where life and death had hung in precarious balance. Outside, the corridor remained eerily quiet, the mundane hum of the hospital continuing, as though unaware of the drama unfolding inside. But inside, every second stretched into eternity. Every beep, every movement, every breath was magnified. The nurse could feel Emily's panic, could feel the raw, primal fear of a woman whose body was betraying her in the moment it was meant to give life. And the nurse knew, in the deepest part of her being, that this case would not fade like so many others. This was different. This was haunting. As hands moved, words were exchanged, and life clung by a thread. A chilling realization took hold. Medicine, for all its knowledge, all its protocols, all its technology, could still meet its match in the unexplainable. There was a mystery here, one that no chart, no textbook, no protocol could fully illuminate. The nurse's heart pounded, not just with the fear of losing a patient, but with awe at the fragile, inexplicable beauty of life itself, poised on the knife's edge between hope and despair. And then, Emily gasped, eyes searching, a flicker of recognition and trust cutting through the haze of terror. The room paused for a heartbeat, a brief, almost imperceptible pause, before the urgent, unrelenting rhythm of saving a life resumed. But in that heartbeat, the seed of a story was planted, a story of a case so unexplainable, so haunting, that it would stay with the nurse forever, a constant reminder that some moments in medicine defy understanding, and that sometimes witnessing life is both the most beautiful and the most terrifying experience of all. Before the alarms, before the panic, Emily Harper seemed like any expectant mother. She laughed easily, shared gentle smiles with her husband, and meticulously documented every kick and flutter in her journal. Her prenatal appointments had been reassuring, her tests largely unremarkable, and yet buried in the fine print of her charts were subtle anomalies, slight fluctuations in her blood pressure, minor irregularities in her clotting factors. A hint of swelling that, in hindsight, felt like a whisper of warning. Small signals, easy to dismiss, but signals nonetheless. The nurse remembers poring over the charts that night, each line a cruel reminder that life's fragility often hides behind the veneer of normalcy. In labor, these subtle warnings vanished under the assumption of health. Emily's pregnancy had been textbook in every visible sense. Her family marveled at her strength, telling stories of her resilience and care in ordinary life, unaware that hidden within her physiology were the seeds of the night's chaos. The narrator gently explains, in terms anyone can grasp, the rare complications that sometimes strike without warning. A placental abruption, where the placenta detaches unexpectedly, an amniotic fluid embolism, a catastrophic and almost invisible blockage in the bloodstream, sudden cardiovascular collapse, a heart and vessels betraying the body without any prior symptoms. Each term carries weight, but is carefully unpacked so the audience can understand the danger and the mystery. The nurse recalls conversations with Emily's family in quiet moments between procedures, their voices trembling with a mix of hope and fear. "She was healthy. We didn't see this coming," Tom had said, his hands shaking as he replayed every memory of the day. The nurse reflects on her own feelings, the mix of confidence earned through experience, and the creeping sense of uncertainty that sometimes whispers, even the most vigilant medical professionals cannot predict every outcome. Emotionally, this section balances hope with unease, allowing the audience to connect with Emily as a person, not just a patient. The nurse also reflects on the paradox of obstetrics, how birth, the most natural act of creation, can suddenly become a battlefield. She describes the labor room, once calm and expectant, transformed into a stage for a battle against forces science cannot always control. The subtle medical indicators that might have warned the team earlier were nearly invisible, and even the sharpest eyes can miss them. Yet, this ambiguity does not diminish the nurse's sense of responsibility or empathy. Rather, it underscores the human stakes in every birth. As Emily struggled, the audience senses the weight of unasked questions. Could something have been done differently? Was there a hidden condition no test could reveal? The narration is careful not to blame, but to illuminate. Medicine is a field built on observation, science, and skill, but sometimes the body defies prediction. Family interviews add texture, showing the loving, everyday life Emily had before the crisis, painting her as vibrant, ordinary, and relatable. This normalcy magnifies the suddenness of the catastrophe, making the audience feel the shock that overtook everyone in that delivery room. By the end of this section, viewers understand Emily not just as a medical case, but as a person, a mother, a wife, a human being whose quiet life became the stage for a medical mystery. The nurse's reflection on vigilance, human connection, and the unpredictability of the body lingers, establishing a sense of tension and emotional depth that primes the audience for the imminent crisis. Then it happened. The subtle warning signs vanished, replaced by an unmistakable, terrifying reality. Emily Harper's vital signs plummeted with shocking speed. Her blood pressure fell like a stone, her heart rate became erratic, and the monitors screamed their warnings in piercing beeps that echoed through the room. The nurse's hands moved on instinct, pressing, checking, recalibrating, but inside a storm of fear raged. She had faced emergencies before, but this was different. This was uncharted territory, a body betraying itself in a way that defied every textbook she had ever studied. The delivery room became a symphony of urgency. Doctors barked orders, the anesthesiologist prepared for emergency sedation, and surgical instruments were readied in anticipation of a cesarean that might save both mother and child. Every movement was precise, deliberate, a ballet of life-saving measures performed under crushing pressure. The nurse's mind raced, trying to anticipate the next complication, even as she fought to keep Emily anchored in the present. "Stay with me, Emily. I need you here," she whispered, each word a lifeline. The voice of experience, calm yet trembling, cut through this chaos, reminding both patient and caregiver of the fragile tether connecting them. Emily's body, however, was uncooperative. Every intervention brought only fleeting improvement. Fluids pumped into her veins, oxygen was delivered, medications administered, but her system remained unpredictable. The nurse felt a cold knot of helplessness tighten in her chest, a rare emotion for someone trained to act decisively under pressure. She watched as her colleagues worked in synchronized intensity, their eyes reflecting both determination and the silent, unspoken dread that this could be a case beyond explanation. The clock ticked loudly in her mind, each second stretching into an eternity as she realized that, for a moment, even seasoned medicine could meet its limits. Outside, the world continued in oblivion. Hospital hallways buzzed faintly with routine activities, a stark contrast to the life-or-death drama unfolding in the small room. Inside, every heartbeat, every breath, every tremor mattered. The nurse recalled the surreal quality of that moment, the way time seemed suspended, how sound and motion became hyper-real. The monitor's beeps formed a haunting rhythm, echoing like a heartbeat struggling to survive. The fluorescent lights flickered briefly, almost as if the room itself was holding its breath. And then, just as quickly, the cacophony returned, relentless and unforgiving. Emergency cesarean was declared. Surgical drapes were readied, and the team moved with practiced efficiency. Yet the atmosphere was heavy with the weight of uncertainty. Emily's eyes met the nurse's one last time before the anesthesiologist administered medication, a silent plea and a fleeting trust condensed into a single gaze. In that moment, the nurse felt the profound responsibility of her profession, to act with skill, to act with care, and to bear witness to the unpredictable dance between life and death. Every intervention, every procedure, every measured breath was punctuated by tiny, haunting pauses, moments where the team simply waited, hoping, fearing, praying. It was in these pauses that the nurse felt the story of human vulnerability, the raw unpredictability of the body, and the unanswerable questions that would haunt her long after the crisis passed. She knew that the mystery was not only medical, but existential, a reminder that life can pivot on a single, inexplicable moment. And then, a flicker of hope. Emily responded, faint but undeniable, to the interventions. Yet the relief was tempered by awe and lingering dread. No one could explain fully what had caused the sudden collapse. This moment, fraught with terror and profound responsibility, etched itself into the memory of every person in that room. It was a crisis that left the team shaken, humbled, and forever aware of the delicate, mysterious balance that governs life. In that instant, the nurse understood something essential. Some medical events are beyond explanation, and witnessing them leaves an indelible mark on the soul. The immediate chaos subsided, leaving the delivery room in an eerie quiet. Emily Harper had survived, and her baby cried, a fragile, miraculous sound cutting through the residual tension. Relief washed over the room, but it was a relief tinged with unease. Everyone who had fought to save her knew that the crisis had been inexplicable, that something had occurred which no textbook, protocol, or clinical guideline could fully account for. The nurse protagonist lingered by Emily's side, her mind replaying every second, every decision, every subtle sign that had gone unnoticed. Questions mounted, and with each answer that failed to come, a sense of haunting deepened. Laboratory results returned in a blur over the following hours. Blood counts, clotting factors, cardiac markers, all normal, all offering no clues. Imaging scans revealed nothing that could explain the abrupt collapse. The very tools designed to uncover hidden threats now provided only silence, amplifying the mystery rather than resolving it. Emily's recovery was equally perplexing. Her vitals stabilized rapidly, her consciousness returned fully, and her demeanor, though understandably shaken, betrayed no lingering damage. It was as if the crisis had been a brief intrusion, a glitch in the natural order of life that left no evidence of its presence. The nurse recalls, standing quietly in the corridor, watching Emily's family absorb the shock. Tom's face, etched with worry, softened only as he held his daughter for the first time. Gratitude mingled with lingering fear, a duality familiar to anyone who has witnessed near death. And yet, behind the smiles and reassurances, the questions persisted. How could this happen to someone so healthy? Could it have been prevented? The uncertainty clung to the team, a shadow that would not fade, lingering in the corners of minds trained to fix, to heal, to know. Hauntingly, the nurse realized that the story would not leave her. In moments of quiet reflection, charting in the late hours, walking the hospital halls after her shift, or lying awake at home, the memory returned. She remembered Emily's wide eyes, the rapid descent into crisis, the panic that never fully receded. Each recollection was a reminder of the fragility of life and the limits of human understanding. Medicine had provided the tools to respond, to stabilize, to save, but not to explain. And sometimes that absence of explanation weighed heavier than the crisis itself. Flashbacks surfaced, the monotone beeping of the monitors, the tactile urgency of her colleagues' hands, the metallic tang of antiseptic and fear blending in the room. These images, vivid and almost tactile, became emblematic of a deeper unease. Not every medical event concludes with clarity. Not every collapse has a cause that can be cataloged or treated. Emily's case was a testament to that uncertainty, a reminder that the human body retains mysteries even in an age of unparalleled medical knowledge, and so the questions hung in the air, unanswered yet profoundly human. The nurse knew she would carry them forward into every birth, every crisis, every moment when life teetered unexpectedly on the edge. It was a slow-burning mystery, a haunting reminder that even in the bright clinical corridors of a hospital, shadows remain. Emily's survival was a miracle, but the absence of explanation left an enduring tension, a silent, unrelenting question about life, chance, and the enigmatic workings of the human body. In the days and weeks following Emily Harper's crisis, the nurse sought answers from colleagues and specialists, hoping to uncover a medical explanation for the unexplainable. OB/GYNs, critical care physicians, and rare disease experts pored over her charts, lab results, and imaging scans. Each offered a potential theory, a thread of understanding, yet none could fully account for the sudden collapse or the swift recovery. The nurse recounts these consultations with a quiet intensity, the kind that comes from knowing how fragile knowledge can be when confronted by the body's mysteries. One theory emerged, a sudden amniotic fluid embolism. Rare, catastrophic, and terrifying in its unpredictability, it occurs when amniotic fluid enters the maternal bloodstream, triggering a rapid cascade of cardiovascular collapse. The narrator explains it visually, likening it to an invisible storm that sweeps through the body without warning, overwhelming the system before any intervention can fully counteract it. Another possibility considered was an undiagnosed clotting disorder, a silent saboteur hidden within Emily's otherwise healthy blood chemistry, capable of triggering sudden collapse during the stress of labor. Each explanation is layered with uncertainty, highlighting the limits of modern medicine even as it showcases its vigilance. Autoimmune responses, too, were suggested. Rare conditions can provoke the body to attack itself at critical moments, turning survival into a precarious negotiation with one's own physiology. The nurse reflects on the paradox. The very mechanisms designed to protect life can, in certain circumstances, betray it entirely. Each expert she spoke with conveyed humility and awe, an acknowledgement that even the brightest minds in medicine sometimes confront phenomena that defy the frameworks of understanding they've spent years constructing emotionally. This draws the audience into the intellectual and moral puzzle. It is not merely about medicine, It is about wonder and the recognition of limits. Viewers are invited to grasp the enormity of the human body's complexity, to feel empathy for patients whose lives are upended by invisible forces, and to understand the emotional burden carried by caregivers who witness events that science cannot fully explain. The nurse reflects on her own awe, on the quiet, persistent questions that pulse beneath every interaction with patients. How much of what we observe is truly under our control? How often do our interventions merely guide rather than dictate the outcome? The cinematic narration emphasizes visualization, slow-motion reenactments of the delivery room, illustrated diagrams showing the sudden cascade of an embolism, and soft-focus shots of the nurse consulting with physicians, her eyes reflecting both curiosity and unease. The storytelling balances scientific clarity with emotional resonance, ensuring the audience feels both the intellectual mystery and the human stakes. Ultimately, the experts' insights provide frameworks, not answers. Each theory sheds light on what might have occurred, yet none close the door on the broader questions. The nurse understands that some events will remain enigmas, moments where medicine meets its limits. It is in this space, between knowledge and mystery, science and uncertainty, that the haunting power of Emily's case persists. The narrative lingers on the emotional truth that medicine can save lives, yet still encounter phenomena that defy explanation, leaving witnesses forever altered, quietly carrying the weight of the unknown. Beyond the medical charts, the monitors, and the theories, there was Emily, human, fragile, and profoundly alive. In the days following her ordeal, the nurse witnessed the quiet, intimate aftermath that no medical record could capture. Emily's recovery was not only physical, but deeply emotional. Each glance at her newborn, each touch of a tiny hand, carried with it the weight of what had almost been lost. Gratitude mingled with lingering fear, and the nurse watched as Emily and Tom navigated this new chapter, their bond strengthened by shared terror and relief. The audience is drawn into these private moments, feeling the pulse of life reclaimed, yet aware of the shadow that remains. Emily's diary entries, read aloud by the nurse in hushed tones, reveal her inner turmoil. "I felt my body betray me," she writes. "For a moment, I wasn't sure I would see my baby's face. And yet, here we are. How is this possible?" These words anchor the story in raw human emotion, reminding viewers that medical anomalies are never just clinical, they are lived experiences, profound and personal. The nurse reflects on her own role, the emotional weight of having been there, of having been the steady hand in a room that teetered between life and death. Even now, months later, she carries the echo of that night in the rhythm of her work, in the caution and empathy she brings to every patient. Interviews with Emily's